Hello, everybody. My name is Andrew DeAngelo, and I've been working with the cannabis plant my whole adult life. Many of you are probably familiar with my older brother, Steve. We've been partners together, first as a life of crime, and then when we legalized cannabis, a life as entrepreneurs in the legal market. So we had a company called Harborside, which was one of the first licensed medical cannabis dispensaries in the world here in Oakland, California. We had that company for 14 years. We had lots of dispensaries all over the state, and our investors decided to take the company public. We exited. I started a nonprofit organization called Last Prisoner Project, some of you may be familiar with, and I also launched this little consulting co-op that I have, and we help entrepreneurs all over the country and all over the world stand up their cannabis businesses or organizations. Really, as entrepreneurs, what we're doing is we're solving problems in society with our businesses, and those that solve the biggest problems do the most business is generally how it works, or how it's supposed to work. I love seeing people's ideas come to life and their visions come to life and help folks with that. I consume cannabis every day, and so does most of my team, but also experience just owning and operating these businesses. It's one thing to have a theoretical understanding of what these businesses are and how to stand them up, and it's another to have actually done it. So I've actually done it. Everybody on my team's actually done it. So I think that's one of the things that sets us apart from some of the others. It doesn't really matter what your industry is. So when I started my consulting business, I hadn't started a consulting business before. So I reached out to people that have consulting businesses and talked to them, and learned from them and got some advice of how to go about, my own consulting business. My ideal client is somebody that's a regional entrepreneur or even a small business entrepreneur, somebody that has some success, maybe in other industries, maybe even in cannabis somehow, and they have some resources, right? And they're ready to leverage those resources to either build something bigger or better than what they already have, or to jump in and start up a business. So, and a lot of those folks, or at least the people that reach out to me, they're pretty aware of what they don't know, and they find me and they look at my background and they do their due diligence. Okay, doing due diligence on any consultant's really important for anybody to do, and really understand the background of the consultant, what that consultant has done and what they've been good at, and who they have on their team to supplement them and make sure that they can check off all the boxes basically for any client. People, when they reach out to me, I end up closing a deal with them, and some kind of engagement happens, and then we work together. You get a lot of inquiries from folks that are just kicking the tires. I have a little intake form, and I send them. They have to answer 5 or 10 questions about who they are, what they're all about, what they're trying to do, where they're located, do they have a license or not, that sort of thing. Get some basic information, and then I can schedule, if the information seems like they're ready for a consultation, we'll schedule a free consultation, and then we can really talk through and say, okay, this is the engagement I think you need to have with us, and this is the deliverables we'll provide, and this is how much it costs, and this is the timeline and you can expect, and then we decide to work together. It's important for clients to understand what they want, and so that's connected to goals, right? And a lot of times people are pretty transactional, and I want to make a lot of money selling weed, or I want to make a lot of money growing, or I want to make a lot of money manufacturing, or I want to start a conference, or I want to, start a packaging company. So, and it's pretty broad. It's not super specific. So we want to get things specific. So I always like to work businesses out on paper first. Paper's cheap, a lot cheaper than concrete. And what happens with a lot of people get in trouble because they haven't done enough work, or they didn't get the right consultant, or they didn't get specific enough. And all of a sudden they realize the vault door they bought doesn't comply with what the local people require. And then they have to tear out the vault and put a new one in, and that costs a lot of money. It takes a lot of time, and all of a sudden you're behind the 8 ball on your budget, and you're having to go back to your investors and get another $50,000 or $100,000 to do that work, and you look like an idiot, right? You look like you don't know what you're doing, and the confidence of your investors and your team is going to go down in that scenario. So I want to work it out on paper first. Then we're going to analyze the P&Ls and the numbers and really get a sense of how the business is going to perform or how it's performing now. And that answers a lot of questions related to goal setting. So for example, in most frameworks across the country, you have to be very sensitive to your cost of goods sold. You have to be very sensitive to your labor hours, and you have to be pretty sensitive to not just compliance in terms of complying with the programs and making sure you don't get your license yanked, but the cost by which you are complying. Controlling costs is a big thing in our industry that we all have to be super mindful of. So the numerical work on paper allows us to really, I take it out 5 years, at least 3 years. And we really see how the business is going to perform. We play around with the assumptions. Okay, what happens if our yield per square foot is 35 grams instead of 70 grams? What happens to the business? What happens to the business if it's 95 grams instead of 70? I create these dynamic pro formas that have all these formulas built into the spreadsheet. So you can change one assumption and it populates the entire spreadsheet. When we feel good about how things are performing on paper, then we're starting to do schematic designs of the facilities, generally in parallel with the numerical work. Meanwhile, we baked our brand in the marketing oven, and it's a nice loaf of bread. You know, what is the old saying? The best laid plans. Because our industry does move very fast, and things change, and the regulations change, or the framework changes from medical to adult use when you're right in the middle of building your medical. Or, all of a sudden you're building a grow and the wholesale price of cannabis collapses because everybody else built a lot of grows at the same time. And so pivoting is part of what I consult on. Most narrative business plans, when I mean narrative, I mean ones that are written in words, not numbers. Most of the time, they're just something to give to investors, and investors usually don't read them. And so they just become paperweights, basically, and nobody reads them and no one really follows. And because the investors are looking at the numbers almost always. And they're going to scrutinize your numbers and your spreadsheets and challenge your assumptions, and want to know what happens if your assumption is wrong. So, that's why I like to come in as early as possible. We call it the top of the funnel for entrepreneurs. So as soon as you decide that you want to get in the cannabis industry, start figuring out your goals and where you need expertise and strong advice. And then, if me and my group fit that bill, call us right away. I'll use an example, right? Let's use a real world example. So New York is a program that's just coming online now. All the licensees in New York are what there's called card licensees, and those are social equity licensees. And I have one potential client there who's engaged me, and she already had her pro forma. She did her pro forma and her branding before she engaged me. And I could tell that it was wrong. The pro forma is wrong. It's not going to cost your X dollars to open this business. It's going to cost a Y dollars to open this business. There's no way you're going to get it with X. X was too low. And that assumption is just wrong. So then, I have to convince them that their initial work is wrong, which is hard. Entrepreneurs, if they're stubborn like me, are going to say, what do you mean I'm wrong? So then I have to first convince them they're wrong, and then convince them that we need to start all over and create a new one. That's a lot harder. If this particular person would have just gotten a hold of me before they went into developing their spreadsheet, then we could have done it, right the first time. So I like to come in as early as possible on the process. It just saves everybody time and money, rather than redoing work. I want to know the vision that the entrepreneur has for their business. Oftentimes, folks don't have that written down. Like I mentioned a moment ago, I have a little intake form. So by the time we talk on a consultation, I know who they are, where they are, what kind of license they're trying to get, whether they have the license or not, whether they have the real estate or not, or whether they have the money or not. Those are very important questions, because if they don't have the real estate and they don't have the license, then we have to get those things for them. And I have to develop a scope of work that includes that. If they don't have the money, that's also another thing that's important to know, right? I want to know the vision. I want to know those basic things about real estate and financing. I want to know where they want to be in 3 years, or 5 years. Do they have a sense of, or do they want to exit, or do they want this to be a multi-generational business? Okay, that's going to change our approach. And I want to know their background. So I need to know your background. I need to know what you're good at, what you're not good at. Who's on your team already? Who your partners are, where you're located, what you're trying to do, what your vision is, and then the real estate and the financing. So those are some of the big things that I'm wanting people to come to a consultation with. I'm all about meaning and impact. That's really what I'm looking for, is not just a purely transactional client. I prefer to work with folks that are trying to have impact in their communities. They're trying to create something that has meaning, that goes beyond just the transaction. We're going to be in the trenches together. We're going to work together. We have to like each other. It's always better to have fun. So I'm looking for fun. A lot of my clients don't have a relationship with cannabis, but it is something I look for. And again, it's more fun, and it's more fun if everybody has a relationship to cannabis. When something's hard and we can't figure it out, we can take some cannabis together and try a more creative approach, or a thinking out of the box approach, or just like, whoa, this is hard, I need a joint, and I find that very helpful. So, at the end of the day, we got a job to do together, right? It's a tricky needle to thread, I'll tell you. I've definitely had a little bit of blowback when, there was a decision made that I didn't agree with, but I had to accept that ended up not working out too good in real time. And so, it's something we all have to be mindful of in the service industry, and clients too. When you decide on a logo, or you put a sign on top of your building, it's there forever. I mean, until you rebrand and change it, it's there. You got to walk by it every day. Everybody's got to walk by it every day. People are going to take pictures of it. People are going to post it on social media. People are going to have their opinion. We live in an age where everybody is an expert and has an opinion, and everybody's a journalist, and everybody is a podcaster, and everybody is a filmmaker, and everybody is everything all at once. And so, you know, every single decision we make together is vitally important. You know, there's only so many turnovers you can commit in a game before the opponent wipes you out. And our opponents in this industry are government, it's the regulators, it's the feds, it's the frameworks, it's the competition, it's, in some cases, big MSOs. There's just a jungle of lions and tigers and bears, oh my, you know, and so it's one wrong step, one wrong decision, and the bears and the lions and tigers will eat you alive. And so it's one of the things that every entrepreneur, I think, especially now with the industry in this very painful place, the stupid money's gone, the easy, low-hanging fruit has already been plucked, and there's a whole bunch of people, impacted individuals, social equity individuals, people in the gray market that are trying to get in, and the money's not there, the financing is not there, the low-hanging fruit isn't there anymore, and it's very, very hard right now. So it's important to make good decisions. I try to establish this with clients right away. I'm on your side, okay? I want you to win. If you win, I win. If you look good, I look good. If you don't win, I don't win. If you don't look good, I don't look good. I'm on your side here. And sometimes it's hard for entrepreneurs to really understand when I say don't do that, and they want to do it, that I'm on their side. It makes them feel like I'm not on their side, but I am on their side. And I'm trying to get them to avoid stepping into a bear trap and getting their foot cut off, or go raise the money to make your vision happen, right? I mean, so you don't have to compromise. We've got the data now, right? We've done this enough times. We know what the average cost per square feet is to build a grow. We know what it costs to open a dispensary. A dispensary pretty much anywhere in the country is going to cost you $1 to $2 million to open it. A lot of people say, well, I can open it for $300,000. No, you cannot. No, you cannot. Okay. You might be able to get the license for $300,000, but you will not be able to open a dispensary for $300,000 right now. The supply chains are still getting worked out for these things. They're a lot higher than they were pre-pandemic. And labor's a lot higher too. What happens is people are unrealistic, right, with what it's going to take to make this dream that I'm dreaming while I'm having my joint and I'm sitting in my backyard. And I want people to do that dreaming, because that's how it all begins, right? The reason human beings are so extraordinary, and we can build cities and we fly in the sky and we can do all this amazing stuff, is because we dream. All right, we dream it. So it's a very important part of our work, is the dream part. But reality bites, and reality bites hard. And so that's why I was like, okay, here's your dream. Let's figure out what it's going to cost. Let's figure out the numbers on paper here. And if we realize, oh wow, you're dreaming too big for your britches right now, let's scale this down. It happens all the time where it doesn't align, and the project needs are obviously paramount, because without that, the fundamental needs of the client can't be met. if you own and operate a cannabis business, you're going to have a bunch of hard conversations with all kinds of different people. And if you're not good at having hard conversations and you don't know how to have them, or you don't know how to receive them, you're just not going to make it as an entrepreneur. It's one of the skills you absolutely have to have. I've noticed that for some reason in the post-digital world, it's harder for people. People avoid the hard conversations a lot more. In the old days, before email and, all text messaging, they don't have to look at somebody in the eye and talk to them and feel their body language and everything that's going down, right? And it's a lot harder to do it that way, but it is absolutely the only way to bridge these gaps that you're talking about. You just have to have a hard conversation. And what I do as a consultant to cover my rear end is I document the gap and I say, okay, this is what I'm recommending. I'll put in the email, right? I'm recommending this. You're deciding to go with this. This is your decision that you're making. This is my advice that I'm giving. So, and then oftentimes what happens is a month or 3 months or 6 months down the road, when the decision plays itself out and I'm end up being right, I can go back to this thing and the client's mad, right? They're mad at me. And I have to say, well, see this email dated 3 months ago or 6 months ago? I let you know that I don't think this was the direction you should have gone in. So that's how I cover my rear end, because it's very litigious right now, and people are suing each other all over the place in the cannabis industry because there is a gap between what people expect and what they're actually able to do. When I owned and operated a harbor site, every darn thing was a compromise, from what kind of paint I could put on the wall to, oh my God, we have to buy this at IKEA because and we have to make it look like it's not IKEA. How do you do that? Well, luckily we had a very creative and brilliant designer who was able to do that. But, and because it's so expensive and you're always pressed for cash in this industry. You're always pressed for cash. The tax man, we're all working for the IRS. As long as 280E exists, we are all working for the IRS. If your consultant is not responsive, big red flag. You should be able to I spend a lot of my day just responding to clients and making sure I'm on it. So that's one red flag. If you find yourself wrapped in a bunch of red tape because the consulting is a firm and, there's all kinds of bureaucracy you're dealing with before you could actually get to the consultant themselves or the deliverable that the consultant is providing, that's another red flag. Folks not being on time is a red flag. How well organized is the consultant? Are they well organized? If they're not well organized, it might be time to say goodbye. If the consultant is too aloof, that's another red flag. Or too arrogant, or they feel like only their way is the right way. That's not how this works. I may have a solution or I may have a decision, but there's more than one right decision in almost every scenario in the cannabis industry. And so what we want to do is be able to collaborate, right? And if someone's too arrogant or aloof, it's impossible to collaborate with them. So that's another red flag. If you are getting invoices from the consultant and they don't add up to the value that you want or you expect, that's the one that's the most common, right? And this happens with lawyers and CPAs too. You get the bill and you're like, what the hell just happened? Where did all this money go? Where is the work? I see this bill, but I don't see the work. And that's another red flag. That invoice should be pretty easy to pay. It may not be easy because your cash flow is not easy, but it should be easy in terms of the decision to pay it and the value you're getting. The other thing that I would encourage entrepreneurs to do when they enter into a contract with a consultant is to make sure that you can get out of the contract pretty easy. I make it very easy for people to end the relationship with me. A lot of times consultants will, they'll have things in the contract that you have to pay them for 3 months after you end the contract, or there's a certain guarantee of a certain amount of money that goes to the consultant no matter what you do. And it's really important when things are not working with anybody. It doesn't matter if it's a consultant or a general manager you hire or an inventor or a bud tender. If it's not working, make the decision quickly to end it and move on to something that will work. If it's not working, it probably won't work. Consultants, lawyers, and CPAs, they protect you from risk, is basically what they do. A lawyer is going to protect you from all kinds of compliance risks. They're going to protect you for contract risks that you might have with contractors. They're going to protect you from legal risk. A CPA is going to make sure that your taxes and all that risk involved with financial fiduciary duties is upheld and done in the right way. Lawyers and CPAs are not going to grow your business. They don't know how to do that. They don't know how to start a business other than filing the legal work and setting up the accounting and bookkeeping. Consultants, that's what I do, is how are you going to win? You have to win. As an entrepreneur, you have to make money. You have to be profitable. You have to beat the competition. So that's what a good consultant is going to do from Jump Street. Sometimes the consultant is going to be an interior designer or an architect, right? They're important too, because if you don't get the look and feel right, or your schematic right, and the flow of your business and people within the dispensary or grow, whatever it is not right, that's going to have a long-term impact on your costs or your growth or your profit or your top line or your bottom line. So that's what we provide as consultants. We provide money that goes into the ledger, not protecting you from money that's going out of the ledger. If the best way to solve any of our financial problems is to sell more weed, that's really, at the end of the day, we're all weed dealers here. That's why it's good to hire people who've been weed dealers before, because that's ultimately what we're doing. That is what we're doing. And so, I help you deal more weed.